here goes. Well, I haven't done a video like this probably ever. I thought it was an important one to make, though. Right now it's just me, no production team, just me, you, and a camera. We haven't talked in a while. So I want to respond to my recent video where I took Inertia to the dog park for the very first time. I know a lot of you had some things to say. I got a lot of criticism on that video. Not everybody. My goal here is just to help you see what was going on in my mind and what I was thinking, and just help you understand my thought process and why I thought it was okay to do what I did. Of course, you know, the benefit of hindsight is always a good thing to have, and we don't always have that when we're training dogs. So if you're new to this controversy, a few months ago, I started a brand new series on my YouTube channel called The Dog Training Experience, where I raise and train my brand new dog, Inertia, from 8 weeks on. To me, I was really excited about this, and my goal was to create the most realistic, in-depth dog training series of all time. Like, that's what I wanted. I felt that's what was missing. There are plenty of videos out there with other dog trainers showing you how they train things to their already trained dogs, and that's good. There's a need for that. I think that's really important to get a wide body of knowledge out there so that people can put the pieces together and learn what works for them. But my hope was to just do something that was unlike anything out there, really show in detail the raising and training of my new dog, Inertia. That's what I really wanted to do. What does that look like? Well, what do you have to go through to actually train a dog? There's only so much you as a student can learn in watching like a one-act video teaching your dog to sit. I mean, how do you get your dog to listen to you in a variety of other places? How do you teach them to listen to you when people come over? And like, what does that training actually look like in the real world? That was my goal with this series. And you've heard me say, it takes 1 to 2 years to really train a dog. Now, I'm not talking about teaching them things like sit and stay and come and all of that, but getting your dog to listen to you in a wide variety of contexts takes a solid couple of years because there's no way to bypass time. Your dog has to gain that life experience to understand what the world is and how to behave in it. Now, look, I'm a YouTube veteran. I've been doing this since 2006. I knew going into this that there was going to be some controversy at some point because a variety of people would disagree with how I handled something or how I did it. I didn't know what that would be. I didn't know when that would happen, but I knew at some point something was going to happen because the internet loves to tell you how to train your dog, I've come to learn. Which is good. I've learned a lot from the internet. I've learned a lot from other people out there who share their critiques and criticisms. I think that's really important to do, and I've always welcomed criticism and critiquing. You know, it's how I learn so much of what I know. So you're not seeing me going into that last video and deleting comments and arguing with people. I've just taken a step back. I'm reading it, trying to understand where you guys are coming from. That's why I wanted to just sit down here and really take my time and respond to the most common things that you guys were saying. You know, it's kind of a bit like parenting, I suppose. I mean, no two people are gonna raise their child exactly the same, and no two people are gonna raise and train a dog exactly the same. So there's gonna constantly be, you know, well, maybe you should have done it this way, or maybe you should have done it that way, or what were you thinking when you did that? So I completely get that, and I think there's, as I said, a lot of value in that. In spite of the fallout of the recent video, which I'm gonna get into in a sec, I'm going to react to everything that you're asking about. I'm going to tell you what I was thinking and why I did what I did. But I do wanna say up front, in spite of this, I still think it's important to show mistakes. I think it's important to show where sometimes a training approach is flawed and sometimes it works, you know? It really just depends on the context and everything else. And anybody who has ever trained a dog, especially dog trainers I'm talking to, you'll understand that there are things that don't go ideally much of the time, you know? And one of the main differentiators here is that I'm just actually showing it. I'm just showing when I screw up. I'm showing when things don't go as I want them to, because I know that's what you guys out there, everyday people, dog trainers, are experiencing in the real world. And if I can just be honest about it and show what my experience is like, then I think everyone has something to gain from that. I'm hopeful that's the case. That's where I'm coming from. Inertia is now 9 months old, by the way. She's only 6 months old in the series. For those of you, you know, wanting to keep up with her currently, remember Instagram is where we post pretty much daily. So you can see where she is on a lot of her things in advance too, though there's nothing like the series. Hey, Inertia, can you come here? Thank you. It's very good. Can you sit? Can you lie down, please? Thank you. That's very good. She's doing play dead right now. Settle. Good girl. If you've ever talked to any respectable dog trainer out there, whoever, they're all going to tell you that they make mistakes. And making mistakes is fine. It's that we learn from them. That's the most important thing. And I really think that's the value of showing things when they don't go well. My intention was never to just put my dog in a position to have drama for the series so that it looks great. I'm not going to do that to my own dog or anyone else's dog for that matter. I really want to make sure that I'm being responsible when I give you guys advice. I know that literally millions of people take my dog training advice very, very seriously. And I've always been upfront about the fact that I do take that responsibility very seriously. No one wants to mess up. No one wants to do things that aren't ideal. But you know, the fact is, the real world is not sterile, and we don't always know what's going to happen in the real world. I think many of the most beneficial moments of this series are when I do miscalculate and realize, yep, that didn't work the way I thought it would. You know, it's not as though like dogs are computers and they're all the same. Every dog is dynamic, has their own unique personality, and it's so important to cater to that when we're working with an individual dog. I mean, literally, no two dogs are the same. So you really have to be open-minded. The challenge in training dogs much of the time is really catering to those nuances with the individual dog. Do you know what I mean? Okay, so let's get into the main controversy here. The video started off by doing a lesson. I was doing some impulse control training and obedience training with Inertia around the perimeter of a dog park, outside of the dog park, not inside, just so that there was a barrier between her and the distractions, so the dogs couldn't run up to her, she couldn't run up to them, so on. And you know, it was clear that before I took Inertia into the dog park that she was pretty apprehensive, she was a little bit nervous, and I think that's where the controversy started. So many people out there, and in hindsight I agree with this, so many people said, you know, that was your cue right there not to let her go into the dog park. Don't overwhelm her. Don't put her in there where she's nervous, as she's likely to have a bad experience. And I mean, you've heard me say things like that on many past lessons and many past videos too. So I think a lot of the confusion here that didn't get explained is, why are you making this decision now to do that when, in fact, in the same video, you even said that dog parks should be met with great caution. But I think, unfortunately, what many viewers didn't realize who haven't been following the series very closely is that this is actually Inertia's pattern with other dogs. She'll at first be a bit nervous, and I believe 100% of the time, or at least very close to it leading up to this, she opens up almost instantly, or even after a few minutes. So sometimes she needs a few minutes to, you know, just take it in and be a little bit like, whoa, what's going on here? And then invariably she opens up and starts playing with other dogs. I mean, I've documented this well. We've got plenty of examples of this. I've been socializing Inertia from a very, very young age, as those of you who've been keeping up with this series religiously will know. I've taken her through 2 rounds of puppy classes. We've had lots of dogs come to the house. So, I mean, I've lost count of how many dogs that Inertia has interacted with and how many dogs that she knows. And so my thinking was, okay, she's a little nervous now. This will be like before, where, you know, she gets nervous, but then she's like, okay, I guess you're all right, you know, and then she opens up and starts playing and running around with them. One of the examples I can think of off the top of my head was the tripod dog, Grover. That dog came on really strong to Inertia, and Inertia was very nervous at first, and she got her bearings and was like, okay, I feel better. And they proceeded to play very vigorously. So, I mean, Inertia loves to play, and I'm continuing to socialize her. I mean, she's under a year old, so I believe in pretty heavy socialization for a dog that's under a year old. I think a lot of viewers came into this not understanding her broad socialization that she'd already experienced, and if you look at this as a standalone event, like if this was the first time I had met this dog and I was going into a dog park, there's no way I would have taken a dog into a dog park who was that nervous if it was the first time I had met with them. But again, I have the benefit of history, and history matters when you know a dog really well. It really matters when it comes to formulating a game plan for them. Honestly, I did feel pretty confident going into it that she would probably open up just like she had before. At one point, she gets toppled and run over by another playful dog, well-meaning. Inertia didn't quite know how to react to that, so she does a series of air snaps. Now understand, I mean, this behavior is heavily stigmatized, but I think it's important to understand what's really going on there, or at least what I think is going on in that particular case. When a dog is air snapping like that after they've just been run over by another dog or whatever, they're basically saying, yo, chill, stay away. I don't want to play that rough with you. I haven't gotten to smell you yet, or whatever. It's a very unsure behavior. I think what a lot of laymen will see is just, you know, a dog biting at the air, and they're seeing teeth and everything, and a scared dog. But it was a fear response. She was scared, and she was trying to create space, which is why I went in there and picked her up to remove her from a stressful situation. Let me kind of go on a brief tangent about that incident, because there are a lot of people who are saying, well, you should have corrected her really firmly right then and there. I don't think getting on a dog's case when they're saying, hey, that's a bit much, what's going on here, can you chill? I don't think yelling at a dog for that is going to do anything. I think the most helpful thing to do is to manage the situation by removing her from the other dog so that she was likely to feel less anxious. It's a very common myth in dog training also that if you pick a dog up while they're doing something you wish they weren't doing, that you're reinforcing it. You can't reinforce fear by providing comfort to your dog. That's a complete myth. Instead, that's a good example, at least I think, of managing the dog to remove them from that situation. In general, my personal dog training philosophy is that it's okay for a dog to experience minor stress if they're likely to rebound from that stress. We don't live in a sterile world. There are times where a dog is going to be stressed because something unexpected happened. I mean, if you're training your dog to be good around loud noises like trains, it's important to expose them to trains at varying degrees, starting small and working up to, you know, greater loud sounds or whatever it is, ideally in a perfect world. That can potentially cause some stress, though we do our best as dog trainers, or we should, to minimize that stress and make it as enjoyable as possible. Sometimes that's easier said than done. Now look, in hindsight, if I had known today was a day that she really didn't feel like dealing with a lot of new dogs in that specific type of environment, then I wouldn't have done it. We don't always have that benefit of hindsight, and I've learned from it since then. I mean, I continue to socialize Inertia with lots of different dogs and monitor her interactions with people and dogs moving forward. Being that I have 3 months of filming that I've done since this video, I can assure you this probably won't be the last controversial moment that we have with Inertia. I'm committed to just showing you the real thing. I want you to understand what the experience is like for me, and hopefully that can help you. All right, so as I go in here, you know, I'm letting Inertia run around the dog park. I'm letting her do her thing, hoping, because I mean, again, that's her pattern. Let her roam. I'm not restricting her with a leash. Let her smell around. Dogs aren't running up to her immediately. She's a little like, this is a little weird, but she's doing okay. Now a dog runs up to her. She doesn't know what to make of the dog. She didn't really get a good sniff in, and she feels a bit nervous there by jumping on me. Right now, she's really concerned with checking things out. Here comes the dog again. There's some healthy interaction from the side. They're smelling each other. It's very reciprocal. Really, I'm seeing the body language here. And I mean, these are things I'm seeing in real time as well, and I just have to make that call as a trainer. Is everything going okay? Here, her body language seems fine. She's walking around, very relaxed feeling. Trying to get her attention on me around the distractions, seeing how responsive she is with all the smells of the dogs. Here, she's not very responsive, as would be expected with a young dog in a new place. And you know, here again, another healthy interaction. You see her tail wagging. She's so far seeming to enjoy herself. She's getting a little rough with a small dog. That was play, but I decided to interrupt because I don't know how old this dog is here. And so again, you know, you're having positive experience after positive experience so far here. Okay, now here this dog got a little bit exuberant with her and started to really play chase before she got a good sniff in, and it's important for dogs to greet each other on their terms. That threw her off a little bit, it was clear, and then, you know, this is where it goes south here, where, you know, another dog came and knocked her over, and she's like, I really am sick of getting knocked over by bigger, older dogs here, and I think it's important to look at that. I mean, she's, you know, she's definitely like, I'm scared. And maybe she felt like she couldn't easily get away, because the last time she tried to run, the dog caught up to her before she was ready to interact. I got a lot of criticism here for basically saying, all right, well, that's when you should have left. But my thinking was, again, maybe she'll rebound from it. Let's try to end on a good experience. Even in cases like this, where dogs have been rough with her in the past, she's often recovered, but here she's clearly not. And I mean, this dog is taking it very well. So here we're walking out. She's having a good experience with another dog here. They're smelling. She's nervous, but you know, this is important for her to get this experience and realize that nothing bad is happening. And again, she sees a giant dog coming over and she's like, I don't know, I'm gonna get under this bench. So she decides to get under the bench and sniff from a distance. Again, I'm thinking I'd rather her not be nervous, but she's She's not shut down completely. She's still smelling the dog, trying to gather information at a distance. It is what it is. That's the real world. It didn't go like I thought it would go. I'm sorry about that. I mean, tell me what you think. Do you think that I should omit my mistakes? I think it's important to show the mistakes, because there's not a dog trainer alive who doesn't make mistakes or underestimate or miscalculate how their dog is going to behave, especially when you're dealing with a dog new to the world going through so many changes. I mean, keep in mind, at 6 months old, your dog is still on the cusp of a later fear period that happens around 8 months of age. That's a spectrum that can start to set in at 6 months or 9 months or whatever. So you're kind of dealing with all of these different variables. Your dog is being inundated with a ton of new information every moment of their existence, especially when they're in a new place around new dogs. Trying to balance those variables and get them working right together can be challenging sometimes. So anyway, I thought it was important to have this discussion. My big question is, should I omit the mistakes from this series or should we include them? I think we should include them. I really believe in telling the real story. I always have. And that's why I continue to be upfront and honest, even when it's not necessarily in my best interest in how I'm going to be perceived out there. I want to welcome all of the new subscribers to this channel. You guys have been awesome. I hope you'll learn something. I hope to learn from you as well. Give a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you liked or didn't like the video. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Hopefully it'll be less controversial, but actually I don't know what's in the next episode. That's one of the things on my plate today, is to go see how it's looking in the edit. So, fingers crossed.